Okay.
Welcome to the September 28th, 2021 session of Tangerine SDR Hamside technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been doing lots of chores around the house. I've been actually playing with getting managed switches working and a few things like that. So and learning a lot about zero config. So that's been my week. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Dave. Let's see. So this week for the Personal Space Weather Station project, I've been working with Jonathan Rizzo to, again, try to get a magnetometer and VLF receiver installed over at my house. So he came over to my house and we started looking at the plans again, and we're working on it. So we're actually, next weekend, we're going to try and find conduit. So back to net.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Bill, N8ET. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, see if my audio holds up. I've got some sort of poltergeist in the computer that just the audio just all of a sudden goes back down to zero. So if I cut out, I'll be back in a second. But I think I may have figured out what the problem is. But as far as the tangerine and the grape were concerned, I didn't get anything done on this weekend because had somebody down there to work on the towers. So they were on towers all weekend and nothing to report from here. So back to that.
Well, fine business. Next on the list is Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening to the net. On PSWS project, we got a function working with a watchdog so that when the science user requests a block of data to be sent from every ring buffer in the system that is listening for a given time frame, that package of data will be sent up to the central host, and then the central host recognizes that it is there and then enters an entry into the observations database so that you can see it's there and other people can be aware of that observation. It's a little bit tricky because you have sometimes some long upload times. So what you had to do is I had to let the upload run, and then when it's completed, do something like, in this case, we create a directory with a unique name that's got the upload number in it. And when the watchdog feature, which is part of digital RF, when the watchdog feature sees that directory appear, it knows, we just got a package of data with that number, and it knows it can get the metadata. It has to untar it, get the metadata out, so it knows the frequency and which antenna you're using and various other things that it needs to cross-reference it into the table. So we just got that working this morning. So anyway, that's what we have done on Space Weather Project this week. Back to Ned.
Fine business. Well, next on the list is Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I forgot to put on my call sign. I'm sorry about that, Dave. When I start up with this computer, it goes back to the settings that I did for something else, which was an amateur radio. And I didn't use my call sign on that, obviously. So anyway, and it took me about 15 minutes to log on tonight. Windows decided to do a big update right before I logged on. So that was exciting. Anyway, haven't done much with Tangerine SDR or anything computer-wise. I spent most of last week working on my once every 2-year flight instructor refresher course. So that kept me quite busy. It's about 25 to 35 hours of online stuff, and it gets a little tedious after a while. Anyway, that's about it from here. Back to you, Dave.
Well, fine business and good luck with that. Next on the list, we have Dave Witten, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello. Not a lot to report. I've been doing a little code, but really nothing that anybody would get very excited about. So back to you.
Okay, next on the list, we have Dave N1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Hello, everyone on the net. The big radio thing I guess I did this week actually was vintage. We have a antique and vintage electronics flea market that happens in New Hampshire occasionally. It's my first time there, but I have a lot of equipment to perhaps purvey there. We'll see. It was an interesting event. Very nice day, very nice fall day that developing here. We're getting some color. I would have liked to have gotten a little more time in on the Max 10 eval board, but didn't get too much done. And I'm kind of discouraged by the other people's reports of their machinations trying to get them to behave. So I guess that's where I'm at. Back to net.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Dev, KC3 PVE. Go ahead, Dev. I see your voice, but I don't hear any sound.
Better?
There you go.
Sorry, it was very low. Okay. Hello, everyone. So we have started a new week here in Scranton on Monday, and we spend the day trying to debug the code, trying to see TEC observations as along with SF observations and the Superdan observations that we have made. So I want to compare, trying to watch the same phenomena of interest through multiple diagnostic instruments. That's my goal, and I spend the day, better part of the day, most part of the day, debugging the code. Thank you so much.
Okay, and
As-
next,
As
go ahead.
as it never working with Python, like it never goes the way you would expect it to go. Like nothing works in one go.
Yes.
and one needs keep spending more time than one usually thought would otherwise spend. Thank you.
Yes. Next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I finally bought the bullet, or bit the bullet rather, and went out and bought my first Raspberry Pi. I figured I'd get one before they ran out of stock and entered unobtainium status, like everything else with a chip in it. So I'm digging around now, looking at potentially buying a Tapper Whisper board to set up a Whisper transmitting station. So that's we'll see what happens the next couple of weeks. Back to net.
Well, fine business. Those are nice boards. I use several of them. And next on the list is Hillman, KD2 MCR. Go ahead, Hillman.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. So I've been trying to work. So now I have a student who will be working on the magnetometer data. So we'll try to look at more data sets to examine the synaptic change of the magnetic field in more detail. So that's what we're trying to do. Otherwise, yep, that's all I have to say. Back to net.
Fine business. And next on the list is James, KG4 DSG. Go ahead, James.
Evening, Dave, and the group. Not much to report here. I posted a link in the chat, something I just stumbled across today about some research using Starlink satellites as a geolocation service. I thought it was kind of interesting. And I was wondering if those frequency bands would have any space weather implications. They apparently are way up. They're Ka and Ku band microwave. And I really don't have anything more than that. So back to the net.
Okay, fine business. And I wanted to make a comment about your picture. This last week, I watched several of the talks on the GRCon. And on Thursday, there was a very nice astronomy talk about a long base set of radios, one in South Africa and one in Australia. And they look very much like your picture that you have when you
That picture is the VLA in New Mexico. I took a trip down there after the Albuquerque tapper and
very
took
good.
that on site. So that's
Well,
where that came from.
They have a picture very similar to that in this talk on GRCon. The other thing that I found very interesting in GRCon was they are developing the use of GPUs as a bus for the radio. And I think that's going to be a quite interesting development. So they're using GPU space to create a bus, and it's not copied. If you listen to the talk, you can hear about why they don't do a double copy. Anyway, next on the list is JWB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Good evening, everybody. Not a lot new ham radio wise to report here, but on a different subject, the Southeast Michigan chapter of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers is having a webinar tomorrow at 1800 Eastern Time on the history of Moore's laws and Moore's law and for the future. So I'll be sticking that up in the chat, the link. It's free. It's a 1-hour seminar if anyone is interested in that. So other than that, that's about all I have here. 7-3 to all. Take care. Stay safe. Back to Ned.
Very good. And next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening. Not a whole lot to report this week on space weather. I may have mentioned last week, I've forgotten, was setting up a large tower speaker and managed to drop it on the floor. But fortunately, there was something under it to pad it from getting the full force of its blow. Unfortunately, that thing was my foot. Which I did break a toe and damaged some other stuff. And went to the doctor. He x-rayed and said, boy, you messed that thing up bad.
Ooh.
I'm trying to recuperate from that now. I have been scratching my head still over one anomaly I see with my grape one. I apologize, I need to turn around and look at the screen for part of this. Occasionally, it seems to go into the weeds. And what I will get when I look at one of the pages of one of the PNGs is all of a sudden everything is rocking along fine. And at some point during the day, the signal's strength drops way down and stays there, and I get nothing but noise the rest of the day. I thought at first that something was going wrong with the LO, but I was able to eliminate that. It's okay. Everything seems to be all right with the signal coming in. The way I fix it is by rebooting the Raspberry Pi. During the time that it's reading garbage, if that going in through midnight, then that day's file name is changed. The WWV10 underlying graph.png is changed to unknown underlying graph.png. And I don't know why. So something seems to be going funny with the Raspberry Pi. A few weeks ago, I got everything pulled together a little bit cleaner in a metal box rather than just spread out on my operating table. I hope that would help. I'd hope that putting it on a UPS would help. This is the only time in 2 weeks or so it's been on the UPS. Only one time that it did it happen. And that was about the time we started this net last Monday evening. It went south on me, and I didn't notice it, and it stayed south until middle of the next day when I noticed it and rebooted the computer. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with that. Back to net.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Joe W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, Dave, and all the other members on the list here. Put the grate back in operation. I had taken it down for a weekend event that we had to turn the radio room into a command center for that 100-mile run from Flagstaff up to the Grand Canyon. Other than that, I've been trying to figure out why a telescope doesn't work. And it didn't work for 2 or 3, 4 days. And then suddenly it started working again about a half an hour ago. So strange things happening in the electronics world. Back to you, Dave.
Well, fine business. And then next on the list is Jonathan KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. This week I was, I finally received my audio injector isolated sound card. It took over a month to arrive from China, but it arrived intact. I noticed that what it does is it takes some of the GPIO lines from the Raspberry Pi and it brings it out to another header for other uses. One of the uses is for a muting relay for soft muting of the audio output. Also, the transmit and receive UART lines are not brought out to the peripheral header. There's actually 2 headers. The one plugs into the Pi, the other plugs into the other is to attach any other hats. And I use some GPIO lines, and I also use the UART as well, and some power and ground. So I'm going to solder in some jumpers and test this thing out. I also have to move the Raspberry Pi physically in my enclosure, move it over about 1.5 inches or 2 inches, just so this board fits. It's a pretty big board. I tried to contact the author of this sound card, but as with all audio injector products, there's not really much support. He recommends contacting the community email list, and I haven't gotten any email back from him or anyone else. So it looks like I'm on my own with this, but the intention is to install this sound card and keep the same functionality with the console port, the GPIO pins for PPS and indicators, and have 192 kilohertz sampling. So I'm in the process of working on that. I'm also in the process of ordering parts for my B field receiver. In that, I also need a pin header for the peripheral header on this sound card. So I'm trying to get that expedited. And I was down, as Nathaniel was saying, I went to Nathaniel's house, and we were scoping out the area and coming up with the plan to install conduit. I have a diagram and a list of parts that I came up with. The only thing I have to figure out is what's going to go on the end pieces. I was thinking about a sealed and a plastic enclosure with a lid with a seal on it, or a cover with a seal on it, and some cable glands on both ends, just to keep the water out of there and have complete access to the cables. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Back to the net.
Okay, and next on the list is Jules, K2KGJ. Go ahead, Jules. Voice.
Yeah, looking for a mute. There we go. Not a lot this week. This week, most of the work was outside stuff around the house, getting ready for the late fall and into winter. But I did manage to unearth a device I built back 1997, which is a 60 hertz, actually it's 60 through 1 kilohertz E-field meter, which has a pickup coil and I put a Faraday shield on it, air core pickup coil with a Faraday shield, and a sensitivity of 5 milligauss average full scale. Minimum sensitivity is about 1/10 of a milligauss, which gets me down to 10 nanoteslas. There are some nice meters you can pick up on Amazon these days for about $100 that will get you down to that same region and cover the 30 to 300 hertz region. Back then in 1997, there was concern about magnetic 60 hertz magnetic EMF from power lines and possible relationship to cancer and other things. And so I designed and built the meter at that time as a precision survey meter, which is, and it's 30 years later, still working fine. But questions that came up about 60 hertz interference with magnetometers, the easiest thing to do is to buy this $104 meter, survey around where you're going to be placing it. And my guess is, anything below 0.2 of a milligauss is not going to give you any trouble. Again, it typically averages out the 60 hertz interference, although under certain circumstances, you may see some noise spikes that are related to it, even with undersampling. Anyway, back to net. Go ahead. Good to see all you guys again. Go ahead.
Sounds good. Sounds like an interesting project. Next on the list is Con, KE8QWB. Go ahead, Con.
Hello, all. As you know, I've been pretty busy since the beginning of the semester. Haven't been on the radio whatsoever. Haven't been listening to WWB like I usually do. But classes have been going pretty cool. Lots of homework. And I started a FPGA programming last week too. The cool thing about that is that the dev board that I'm learning on in school, it has the Altera Cyclone 4, which is the same FPGA chip as on the Lime SDR that I have at home. So once I'm finished with this course, I think I might be able to program my Lime. So that's pretty cool. And other than homework and studying, that's all I have for now. Back to net.
Also, many of the open HPSDR radios used a Cyclone 4. So that's an opportunity for you.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I can't wait to get back into the SDR, but I've just been really busy.
Well, that's part of being in school. So next on the list is Michael, AAAK. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, thanks, Dave. Actually, last week we had a period of low electrical noise. We had a windstorm come through that took out power for about 77,000 homes and businesses. We were running on generator, but unfortunately, Xfinity Comcast went legs up about a little over 2.5 hours after the power went out. So we had power, but we couldn't talk to anyone. Anyway, we're back on now. Back to you, Dave.
Fine business. And next on the list is Scotty, WA2 DFI. Go ahead, Scotty. Mike?
I unclicked the wrong
I,
thing.
I
How's
heard
that?
you cough and then
I tried to mute my cough. Apparently, I left the cough through and muted my audio, which is probably the more intelligible thing to do. Anyway, last week was spent recovering from DCC and then driving about 2,000 miles back to here, just in time for the first Hamfest of the season, which was really difficult because everything has been packed up for about 6 or 8 months since the last Hamfest. In fact, I think it was December of 2020 was the last time I had all the stuff out. So it was very difficult. I'm still recovering from the long ride and all that. Haven't really done a lot on SDR. Our intent this week is to get the magnetometers out to people, to get them tested and out. They're all laid out, sitting on the bench with the Raspberry Pi hooked up, and then I had to leave. So now I'm back. Now I got to get in there and get to work and get those out to you guys. So that's the task for this week. Back to you, Dave.
well, fine business. And next on the list is Tom N5EG. Tom, at least from your last email, it sounded better news.
Yeah. If it hadn't have been for today, it would have been. I verified that my hardware dev board is not clobbered, so the hardware is good. And I found out in great detail what happened. The application that comes bundled with the dev kit, all of them depend on flash memory having magic values in a certain location to get the MAC address and things like that. Those got overwritten when I flashed the part with the backup. And so now it doesn't know how to find the internet. I built my own version of the simple socket server, and I went in and hard coded the MAC address in, and I got DHCP up and running and all of that. However, in trying to find out why I can't read and write the flash, I found that the board support package has got an error in it, and it's generating the wrong software for initializing the flash. So I've been in, I had to unfortunately go back to ground zero and start over. It's one of those kind of problems. I've edited that, and I currently make bombs with make error 1, after which it instantly clears the build console. So there's an error buried in some 10,000 lines of make, but it's helpful enough to make sure I can't look at it. So well, I did get the debugger working, and that turned out to be library versioning problems in the Quartus tool. And there's, Scotty, you and I need to have a long offline talk. Various versions of Quartus have lots of different bugs, and some are capable of doing some things, others are capable of doing other things. And I've been in this very difficult situation of building on Windows in version 16, saving everything on a server, rebooting into Ubuntu, restoring from the server, making a change, going back to the server, rebooting back into Windows 16.1, pulling back from the server. And I found a couple of situations where it seems like their files are mutually incompatible, and we may not have a way around, I'm not sure. So this may be a long discussion offline as to what we perhaps need to do here. So that's it for the week.
Well, fine business. And I believe I've talked to everybody. Has anybody not had a chance to say something? Nothing heard, so we'll be open for general discussion.
I've got a quick question to start out. It was already mentioned, earlier version of FPGA. I'm wondering how difficult is it to move between the families, the Altera specifically. My question is Stratix 4 versus the Max 10. Is the code compatible, or I guess all code compatible is at some level, but
Well, the Verilog code's compatible, but a lot of the IP is not. So you have to go through and rebuild all of the IP, and most notably um, the things that are different, especially even between parts in the same family, is a number of PLLs. And when you go to from Max to Stratix, the PLLs are different. So so you have to use the PLLs of the new version, and you have to configure them the same way to get the same results. And
of course,
so that's one thing. And I found most of the time, except for PLLs, most of the time the tool will automatically update something you have, but there's a lot of times when it won't. So you have to go back in and basically call up the wizard for the IP of the new part and then configure it like you want it to work, which is sometimes problematic because there may be a lot of settings. And I mean, ideally, you'd like to open them up side by side, right? And say, okay, let's move the parameters over. But you end up having to open one in the old tool and copy down all of the parameters that you set, and then open it in the new tool and get things as close as you can. And hope it's not enough configured enough differently that you can't get there from here.
Yeah, it's too bad they throw old parts out.
Yeah, and you know, as Tom says, every version of Quartus has different bugs. So
yeah,
just
yeah. So Scotty, I've confirmed version 16 will not build the DRAM controller, the DDR DRAM controller.
Even under Linux?
Even under Linux, it blows up.
Okay.
Well, I say that I'm pretty sure it. I have version 20.1 installed under Linux, and that builds the DDR controller okay. I can't build the DDR controller under version 16. It gets synthesis errors when I try to do it.
I know, I get the same problem. In fact, it won't build even under 20.1 under Windows.
Yeah, it does build. The problem is that if I do the build under Linux, I can't build the board support package under Linux because they've changed all the modules and they don't work backwards to the old IP. I tried porting the IP, but that doesn't work, and I have no idea why. I just get a kernel panic when I try to do that. So you have to do certain things in certain versions because a version might work doing one thing, but the other version doesn't work. And so you've got all this back and forth kind of stuff.
The problem is you can't build the IP under 20.1 and then import it into 16. So you're kind of stuck. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm trying to work around what minimum set of files can I port back and forth and have it not break. They do something interesting. They keep a database with binary proprietary files, and inside that database are version marked and time-stamped versions of the files. So if you go re-time-stamp the files to get things to work, the database throws it out as you did something you're not supposed to do.
One of the things that we learned early on was to go in and delete the database intermediate points. And that the only way really to start over from scratch again is to go in there and delete that entire directory structure. And it's a little unnerving because it's like, megabytes and megabytes of stuff, and you just go in and you just blow it all away. And what it is these are I think what you're referring to are the intermediate points in which they save. I don't know what they save there, but it's called database. They're DB files.
Right.
So whatever they put in them makes it easier to compile it next time. But you can blow them all away and start over with zero, not even a DB directory, and it will still compile. And it'll start over as if you just opened up the new project and started typing all your code in. So, so I don't know if that helps at all, but
I'll take a look at that. I went back and forth and managed to blow away my one working code version this morning due to a version timestamp interlock issue.
Hey,
And
I got into the habit.
So I'm back to ground zero.
I get into the habit of just copying the entire directory. The beauty of it is all of the paths are relative paths. So
Almost all the paths.
Oh,
There's
you
a
found
few
some that aren't?
exceptions. There's a couple of exceptions.
Because anything that I've done so far, at least, if I just copy the entire directory into a new version, now you can't change names, but you could copy it over to a new version. And then if you break something, that at least you can go back to the old version. But so I'd be interested to hear the files, the names you found that are different, that aren't relative.
Yeah, I saw it in one document. There's one module where they use absolute rather than relative path naming.
Figures.
And yeah, so any rate, I'm going to keep banging on this. I've managed to put holes in all the walls in the ham shack, banging my head against it.
I'm going to send you a bucket of
mud.
And some
Yeah,
tape.
if I don't patch the holes in the walls, I can put it on my face. It won't make much difference.
Many uses for spackle.
Well, I'll send you some rubber mats you can hang on the wall, so it'll
yes,
save your hand.
If this actually works, I'll get a plaque that says I'm an Altera survivor.
That's right. And you know what happens? What you'll do is you'll file a report like on the DRAM that won't work, that doesn't compile, and you'll find out that you are the most knowledgeable one on the list when you're talking to these guys, because you've been looking at it for weeks and you know the ins and outs and what it does and all this, and they're just learning it right now. And that was what the problem I had was they had me try 3 or 4 different things, none of which worked. And then they finally gave up and said, just go use Linux because we can't make it work under Windows. I think that we're gonna revisit that, because I don't think that's an acceptable answer when other things don't work with the same version.
I managed to do a clean port of everything to the new IP, but when I try to, and I can build it and all of that, but when I try to run it, I get a kernel panic in the RTOS, and I don't know what that means. So at any rate, it's been one of those weeks.
Means you're dead in the water is what it means.
Yeah. So at any rate, I'm going to try doing partial builds and see if I can capture the make error log before it runs off the screen.
We used to call them kernel picnics.
Kernel picnics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, you have a kernel picnic.
Yeah. Yeah. My new bride here of 1 month is having serious doubts about my sanity.
So she's wondering what all the holes in the wall are from.
Yeah. What's this loud thumping noise coming from downstairs?
Oh
well. I think she's given good advice. It's something like take a break.
So we really also, I want to get with you and review the adapter board, because that's basically done and ready for layout. And now that we've got the funding, I want to proceed with that so we can get build some RF boards and get some testing done.
Yeah, the question is, how do we test when I can't get anything to come up and run on the FPGA?
Hey, like Werner von Braun says, that's not my department. I'll plug them together for you.
Okay, well, I'll wait.
So we'll have to figure out something, and it may be much more crude testing than what you'd like it to be.
Yeah.
But at least we can move some data in and move some data through.
Yeah, I get the gut feeling that somebody seems to have decided the Max 10 may not have been a good item for long-term support.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it was the newest edition, I think, before they were bought by Intel.
Yeah.
So, and there's been some question whether Intel is really committed to FPGA work or products, or whether they just wanted to get the FPGA core so they could stick them next to their processors.
Xilinx has announced they don't make FPGAs anymore. They make something else. I can't remember.
But system on chip
that happens to have FPGA fabric in it, but that's just a trivial part of the picture.
That's funny. They invented it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll keep trying here. I did find, I did get to the root of the problem from last week, and I know my hardware's good. I got slugged through all of that. and found it was completely, the build from scratch is missing all of the flash initialization code.
Yeah, and they do the tricky stuff like that, is put things in Flash, but to hear that erasing the Flash in the part also erases, this is external Flash, right?
Yes, it's the QSPI flash.
Yeah,
And
that's like
that's where the board serial number and the MAC addresses, magic characters, and a few other things are.
Why would they erase that? I don't understand.
I don't know, but that makes everything else also not work.
And that part, I believe, has block erase functions, so they should put stuff in an area that's not touched.
Yeah, the magic values are in the topmost block.
So did you find an image of that you can restore?
No, but I found the code that writes it. However, I'm unable to build anything that can write to the flash. That's part of the software that's not working correctly.
Okay.
So I can't poke it, but even if I could poke stuff in there, it wouldn't do me any good.
We'd have to have the file, I mean, the bytes to put in there.
Yeah, I can determine from reading the source code what bytes ought to go in there. And so I'm not so worried about that. I'm worried about getting the QSPI flash reader and writer working.
So how big is it, just one sector? I mean, how many bytes is it?
Yeah, it's one sector, and you only need about 20 or 30 bytes in that sector to be valid for stuff to come up and run.
Is that stuff that can be backed up?
It might.
Now that you know that it's needed?
Yeah, but the QSPI flash reader and writer would have to actually function correctly in order to do that.
Oh.
Well, that's a problem.
Minor details, you know.
So
as long as you know what's on there, I mean, you could just put your hand on it and think about it, right? And it'll just.
Yeah, what I did without all that initialization code, I went in and modified the software to hard code the MAC address and the C code. And when I did that, DHCP came up and ran, and I got the simple socket server up, and I could, send telnet commands to and from the board and turn LEDs on and off. And so I was trying to track down why didn't the flash work, and I found the file descriptor table completely null, and thought, gee, that's weird. And that's
doesn't sound right, does it?
That none of the modules for talking to that stuff were built from the default build on the thing that they shipped with the module. So that's what I'm trying to track down right now. So, in some ways it's good. We know the hardware is good, and I've got it down to one section that's blown up, and now I'm just got to slug my way through the code. Neos is not very functional on Windows. If you lose focus and regain focus on the Neos window, it crashes. And so in Linux, that doesn't happen. And so I've been able to copy over all those files and actually get it up and get the debugger working for Neo. So I've been able to bring up my C software load and actually single step through it and debug it on Linux.
All right.
And so I think that was a kind of a major accomplishment. My hope is I can work my way through, find what make ever one means. And if I can
less than two.
Yeah, obviously. And if I can figure that out, maybe I can find out why the flash code's not initializing correctly.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck. Get yourself a catcher's mask or something for the wall.
Yeah. It's a remarkable project. I do believe that not a single thing has worked correctly.
Yes. Par for the course, I guess. Well, if it was easy, anyone could do it, right? But it can't be so hard that no one can do it. Otherwise, we're out of luck.
Yeah, it can be.
Can be, yeah. So Dave Whitten, is it Adaptive Compute Acceleration Platform? Is that what they're calling it?
Something like that. Yeah, it had an A in it. It started with A.
ACAP, they call it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're too good for just and glue logic is over.
Well, anytime you go away from any of these manufacturers for more than about a year, you come back and there's a whole bunch of new names that you have to learn.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what,
their brand names and their, what their series of FPGAs are.
that's what got me fed up with developing on Microsoft platforms, just because they had a policy of renaming their everything in their development. They wanted to own the development thing, and they did it by renaming everything.
Takes a huge amount of your time just to keep up with all that.
It's bad enough when they don't do it on purpose.
Yeah, they do, though.
I lost me about 2003. Any progress on getting those prototype, the boards sent out?
No, that's what I was saying. That's my task for this week, is to get those done. And they've been sitting on my desk for who knows how long now. I got to get them out. They've kind of bubbled to the top of the to-do list, and because I want feedback before I go buy hundreds of them.
Yeah.
So we need to do that. And so I need to do that, get it out. So,
well, I can use existing code I have to, generally check it out. But to make, I've also got the skeleton of or more than a skeleton of a utility just for you to run tests sequentially on lots and lots of boards. But I really don't want to, and also burn the I2C flash. I mean well, it's I2C, but it's the
serial number one.
Serial number flash, yeah. And so that's kind of mostly sketched out, but really I haven't done that until I actually get a board in hand.
You can reburn that flash, right? And I mean,
yeah, I don't think that's a big deal. It doesn't look to be. I haven't actually written it on anything that I've got, but
yeah, because I think on the first ones that I got, the Rev Ds, I ran the first ones through multiple times.
Yeah.
Just to prove that in fact I could write them, and then I could write them with something different. So that like it was really different.
Well, I just wanted to have a utility that would, assist in getting those tested, some minimal testing and out the door.
But it'd be nice to have one to do that with.
It makes it a tad easier, yeah. But or at least you're more confident in what you're doing when you actually see it. So I can fake it, but for the I'd be more strongly motivated if I had one of those real prototypes in hand.
All right, this week they will be
okay. Yeah, and you do have my address.
I do. It hasn't
okay,
changed,
good.
Right?
Nope.
I can send both of your and Dave's to you, right? Or vice versa.
Just send them to either one of us, but to me it would probably be the most expedient.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have a portico and he doesn't yet, or whatever it is. It's for the UPS guy to put them in, whatever you call that thing on the front of your house.
Porch.
Yeah.
Hey, you heard about the guy looking for work? He comes up to this farmhouse. And he says, I'm looking for work. You got anything I can do around here? And he says, yeah, you can paint my porch. I'll give you $100. The paint's in the barn. And so the guy comes back an hour later and he says, oh, I'm done. And the farmer says, well, how'd you get that done so fast? He says, oh, it was easy. And by the way, that's not a porch, it's a BMW. Oh, there you go. There's a joke of the evening. So it's a porch. And apparently I can't get a UPS or FedEx to ring my doorbell. So they so anything that gets shipped here, the signature required just never seems to get here. because I mean, I'm here all day. The door is like literally feet from me, right? And they say attempted delivery failed. And I never heard the doorbell. I never heard the truck. I never saw anybody. So I've gotten used to sending it FedEx. And then as soon as it's shipped, I go online and I switch the delivery address to the local drugstore that has a UPS or has a FedEx port, and it's a mile from here. And when they send me an email, then I go pick it up. And it works every time. Well, the last time I tried it, they tried delivery 4 times. It took an extra like 6 days.
Oh, geez.
Package.
I've got a trouble with DHL. They've got me on some kind of a no ship list now and claim I've got to show my passport in order to get off the list.
Passport?
Yeah.
Well, you're not trying to ship yourself anywhere, are you? I
No,
mean,
no, this is stuff coming from, I think it's coming from like a guy in Poland. It's a whisper transmitter. And had no problem before the first time I ordered, but for some reason, when he shipped it this time, he didn't use my full name and he just used the initial J matey, and somehow that wound up getting on this no ship list that DHL maintains. I'm going back and forth with now. What do you need that personal information for? You know.
So what is that? That's like to prevent you from like collecting illicit.
I think it has to do with export of sensitive materials or God knows what, terrorist list or who knows what.
I know when I lived at my old house, UPS delivered the package to the wrong house. And it went through the whole insurance rigmarole and all that. And because of that, they put me on a always required signature list. They would not leave it on my porch anymore. I had to sign for everything, even anything from DigiKey, I had to sign for it.
Yeah, it's
Big
crazy.
pain in the neck. Yeah. And so what do you have to do? You have to go down to the office and show your passport to.
Well, I'm still talking with him and saying, you know, is there a local office I can go to? Yeah, but right now we're still in conversation mode.
I know you have to drive to New York City and show them your passport.
Probably.
That would be convenient.
Sounds like Dave's eating potato chips.
Oh, no, I was rustling a little bag of kits.
Parts.
But yeah, but I should have turned off my mic.
You do have a particularly sensitive mic.
The other kind of chips.
Yeah, I guess they were chips, but not the edible type. Yeah.
I
There's
wonder if you could make a transistor out of potato.
I'll bet you could.
You can make a battery out of a potato, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Lemon, potato, orange, tomato.
I still remember the what was it, the Spartan FPGA? They built something, and I think it was an orange they used for, and an orange and a copper nail they used as the battery.
Yep.
It's weird.
Yeah, typical high school or 8th grade science fair project is to take a lemon or whatever, put in a copper nail and a galvanized nail, and or a couple of them in series, and then run an LED.
Used to cook hot dogs with a couple of forks and the suicide cord.
Yep.
Indeed.
The Alfred E. Newman suicide cord with the plug on one end and alligator clips on the other.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Got a couple of those kicking around.
Don't let them touch.
Yeah, but
so like my
absolutely necessary lab device.
My old house, believe this or not, had no main circuit breaker. The meter bus bars came right into the main panel, and all the house breakers were on it.
Whoa.
You're kidding.
It was like so not to code, you could not even believe it. And
yeah,
I have
my
a
first house in California was that way too.
Yep. And I have a screwdriver now with half the shaft blown out of it. That, you know, trying to fix a breaker in that box when there's no shut off. And I touched the wrong thing and kablam. It's great. I still keep the screwdriver around as a memory to not work on things that are live. So Nathaniel, how is the, any news on the grant for Scranton?
Which one?
The one to put the tower on the building.
Oh, that I am still trying to get the plans pulled together. So unfortunately, no. I've been calling the consulting engineer almost daily. It's more like, yeah, or I guess bi-week, was it twice a week? So yeah, unfortunately, no, but I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
All right,
I've had a tremendously difficult time getting in touch with contractors recently. So
I think that's going to be the new normal, unfortunately.
it's really tough. And everyone just seems like overworked and overbusy. But yeah, so I'm working on it.
Yeah, I supposedly had the perk test done for a septic tank done. It was done 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the results yet. It's like, come on, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, and by the way, we can't do the test until you send us the money. But they could wait to give you the results for however long they want.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh well.
Well, so far I haven't paid anyone, so there's that.
So even if you got your money back, it wouldn't do much.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping. I sent another email about it today.
Well, I'm still waiting on the City of Phoenix doc system, which you think would be really good. It's electronic filing of your plans and the reviewers file, make their comments and read, check them back in, and everything's electronic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't tell you is they put a administrator in between each end of the doc system.
Okay.
So that when you check your plans in, you really don't check them into the doc system, even though they go in there. In order to get your plans in front of a reviewer, a person has to manually move the stuff over from the input bin to the input bin of the reviewer who's going to review your thing. Okay, so I can kind of get that because they got like maybe 5 reviewers and they got all the plans coming in and they have to be distributed evenly among the guys who have the right amount of time to do it. So they get an even load basically. And
Yeah.
some of them are faster than others. So, okay, I get that. But when the reviewer's done and he checks it into docs, it has to wait for the person to move it to the outbox so that you can see it. And there's absolutely no reason for that whatsoever. It's like an electronic funds transfer taking 15 days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, no, it's instant. So what do you mean? Why should there be any delay whatsoever?
Yeah.
But there is. So that what that means is that pretty much anything going through the city takes 2 weeks. Because it's a week to get into the system and a week to get out, plus the reviewer's time. And he's fast. He can do 40 reviews in a week, he told me. So the reviewer's time usually isn't more than a week, but then you got to add the 2 weeks on it for the and what my contractor says, yeah, they take the lowest paid guy in the office, and that's his job is to move stuff over. So he has no incentive to do it fast at all.
Mm-hmm.
So like our plans were submitted on the 17th, both our drainage and our main plans. I have yet to see any movement of them anywhere. They're in limbo. I think they're with Rush limbo is where they are.
Well, that's underground now.
That's underground. That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So that was the point, is that you're not going to, they aren't going to come back.
No.
So, but the good news is I finally got a portal into the doc system so I can look to see if it shows up. But when it doesn't, there's nothing I can do about it. So all you do is, I'm with Tom, I'm banging my head against the wall, going like, what do I do? Oh, you can call up, but you're not going to talk to anybody who knows anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk to the viewer, he says, oh, well, I did my part. So you have to call the electronic EPR people and rattle their cage and get your plans. So the last time we got lost in the shuffle, we called up and asked for an in-person review.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like in-person reviews. So they actually do something when you request an in-person review. Because you're allowed to do that at any time, but that doesn't mean they really want to give you one.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And when you do an in-person review, I guess that
Well, we
Why-
requested it. No, we just requested it. Then all of a sudden the log jam's broken and the stuff comes out. So you don't need the in-person review anymore because now you got your documents.
Yeah.
So it's been an experience, I tell you. I'm glad that I didn't have any money riding on this. Oh, wait.
So do we think that the Intel Max 10s will ever appear?
They're supposed to, but I don't know. What I've never been able to pry loose of them is, I mean, are you making any at all?
Yeah.
I mean, they had a production run going, and they had producers and consumers, and the flow was there. And then what happened? All of a sudden, the flow went to zero. What? I mean, I can understand how it might be a little long, or I might get half the amount that I asked for, but why is it zero?
Right.
Am I so unimportant that I am dead down here way at the bottom below anybody getting any parts at all?
Yeah.
Probably the fab is being used for something else.
Well, but yeah, it just seems kind of hard for them to make any money when they don't have any parts to sell. Because it's true that the TSMC fab is used for lots of other, I mean, it's a contracted fab line. Whereas for the Aria 10, it's Intel's internal fab line, which of course still has the same loading problem, but at least they control it more than they do over TSMC. And interestingly enough, in Phoenix, TSMC is building a giant, like a 10-acre fab facility, but it won't be ready for 5 years.
I was gonna say, yeah. Can you
And-
have them? Are you going to have them make your the Max 10s over
Yeah,
there?
can I just like drive over there and sit at the gate until they give me my parts?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
moving all the lines over to
that's right.
Phoenix.
Anyway, I don't know the answer to that, but at least at this point we have a path forward. And I mean, the question I really have is, am I going to be able to get Aria 10s? I mean, is there any really point in banging my head against the wall here doing that to put in another part that I won't be able to get?
Yeah.
So they're on order. So if they show up, if I have them in my hand, then they can't take them away from me unless I go with rush, and then I won't care anyway.
Yeah.
But if I can get them, then I know that I have them. So it's kind of a dumb statement, but it seems to be the only one that works these days. They aren't in my dead hands, and I don't have them.
Do we have the budget to do a contingency order, select another part and order it, and then redesign the circuit board once we have the part in hand?
That's the next grant that I'm going to ask for, and which is also on the slate for this week. It's not really a hard thing to ask for, but it's basically is all of the rest of the things for the Tangerine project that we don't have funding for. I'm going to ask for funding for all of it. Because they want us to put everything all together in one proposal. They don't want us to ask for, that piece of the project, that piece of the project, that. So I'm taking their advice. I'll put everything and I'll list them so that they can say yay or nay individually if they want. But a lot of them will be linked together because, I mean, if you want to do the Data Engine Mark II, then you have to get the Data Engine Mark II parts. So those two pieces, the design and prototyping of the Mark II and the availability of the expensive parts, all that has to go like as one block. And then we have to have the licenses because the Aria 10 requires a paid license. So we have to have FPGA licenses. I mean, it all kind of lumps together. So, and then I thought what I would do is, and I got to get with Jonathan and you, Nathaniel, talk about the VLF receiver. I want to put that in there too.
Yeah.
Put some funding for that to build the prototypes or whatever you don't have funding for.
Yeah.
Let's add it into this grant request and let them approve it at the same time.
Scotty, I know ARDC has built a lab, and you said they've stocked it with was it the Xilinx development tools? Have they made any mention of the fact that they might want to add Intel to that?
That was ORI did that, not ARDC.
Oh, well, yeah, but they may have done it with ARDC
They did it with
funds.
ARDC funding, yes.
Have they said anything about Intel?
They haven't.
Okay.
I have asked though, and if if we wanted to do that, we could most likely piggyback on, if we wanted to provide the licenses, we could piggyback on top of their servers. They're amenable to that. But I'm inclined to keep this under Tapper Hamsci auspices rather than under ORI. And because if we're going to get the licenses, then we ought to be responsible for how they're dispersed. If they get the licenses, then by all means have them go at it. So perhaps if we can't get them, they could be the ones that would facilitate those.
Okay.
If that's. But
I just thought it might be an option
well,
down the road.
Their projects currently use Xilinx, so they are interested in supporting their project, of course.
Sure.
But they are also interested in supporting open source. So, and of course that's what we are. So, if that would help us, they might be willing to do that. So, yeah, that's another thing that has to be done is too. I've got to get the temporary license and get it over to John to see if we can get that set up to try out to see how it will work. John's agreed to do the licensing to work on the server, so we just have to get the license, and my local guy has agreed to give us like a 60-day temporary license so we can try it out, verify that it works, and then we can talk about getting him paid for years at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So now I feel more tired than I did before.
Mm.
When I think of all the things that have to be done now, it's like just dig in, check them off one at a time. That's what you do.
Sometimes don't think too much, right?
Don't think too much about it.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Kind of like driving back from the Midwest, got to make the next state, that's all that counts.
Yeah.
And when you make that, then it's time for the next one.
Yeah.
But usually I'm able to drive many, many, many miles, like from my brother's place to here or Mike's place to here. This time, there were just too many late nights and I couldn't make it in one night. So I had to stop. And so it took an extra day to get back home.
Mm-hmm.
But you can either get back home early in the morning and be beat the entire day,
mm-hmm.
or you can stop and rest, and then you get home in the afternoon, and then you're tired, but not non-functional.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I might sign off.
Yes, I like your background. That's a different perspective picture than you had before.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, they have a couple different perspectives of it.
Because this is like looking out your office window, maybe to the main part of the campus. Is that right? The railroad's behind you in this picture.
Yeah. No, I think this is. So no, the railroad is not behind me. The railroad would be behind the building that way. So the railroad's on the other side of the building.
You're kind of looking parallel to the tracks then.
Yeah.
But your office is kind of around back this way behind that picture, right?
Yeah.
Because the main entrance there is not, I can't see it on your photo. Yeah, isn't it further to the right?
You know what else is? I think what else is weird? I think the photo's flipped.
Oh, yeah.
So
the main entrance then is down here on the left. What I'm seeing, and not, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, the main entrance would be like right about here, I think.
Yeah, but that's the wrong building, isn't it?
Well, it is my building. It's just
it's the wrong side.
It's like,
so if you're dyslexic, it looks fine.
I guess so.
73,
Bill. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
I'm gonna sign off too.
Yeah.
And I'll be driving because I have to take my wife into Birmingham for something, but
okay.
I'll plan to be there. So if some glitch happens in it, you'll know why, because I won't be on the road.
All right, sounds good. 73. Bye, everyone.
73.